Okay, thank you for staying. I'm gonna share a little story about our experience with NativeScript. I won't go in too deep into NativeScript, but if you want to know more, just come at me at the lunch or later on, and I'll have another presentation about that and can show you more about that. But I'm going to talk about our Mijn Inkomen Later app that we developed. This is business to consumer mobile app development. That's what we do. Myself, I work for Nationale-Nederlanden. Now I'm in my 27th year. That's not only senior engineer like what I do there, but also in years, of course. I'm a lead developer, but also the sole developer nowadays, so that's easy to say for our pension app. And a progress developer expert for NativeScript. So that means I also talk at other conferences about NativeScript and show people the strength and the good of it. And we've done it now twice. A NativeScript Developer Day, I co-organized that last April also at our Nationale-Nederlanden office in Amsterdam. Okay, what it started with was in 2013, I was asked to join our pension portals team or department, and we had something called Mijn Pensioen, my pension. And that's actually, we have portals there for employers, but this one is for employees. Like they can have information about their pension that's insured at our company. It's basically information what's insured for them, but also they could use functionality to play a little around with it. So to see what choices like going have a later retirement age, what that would influence on your financial situation. But this is only what we have for our customers. So if you're not a customer of Nationale-Nederlanden, especially if your employer doesn't have a pension account with us, you have no information about that. So we wanted to be more like a coach for everybody in the Netherlands. And that's why we launched or start working on Mijn Pensioen Coach. For me, I was a developer. I didn't do a lot of development, so I was more involved in vendor selection and stuff like that. But essentially, Mijn Pensioen Coach, and here's a promo video of it, is like a marketing instrument for all Dutch people. The goal was to make them aware of their pension and also financial decisions. And as you can see here, it has functionality like, do you already invest for your pension yourself, or do you save money for that? And the center point is this, as we call in Dutch, piek en pijp. I'm not sure how to translate it to English, but peak pipe maybe. But it gives you insight in what your situation is and how you can move on. What we did do is like we outsourced this to another company to build it for us natively, so native iOS and native Android. But they were also supposed to do all those calculations for us. And we found out that it wasn't that easy for them. So we decided, well, we can take it up ourselves. So what do you want? What do we need to calculate? For instance, we love acronyms at our company, so we call this one PACE. That's essentially calculating these are your pensions, and in the end this will be the revenue for you if you retire, for instance. But we also have PEACE, and that was based on like, okay, you want to have a monthly income at, I don't know, say 2,000 euros a month when you're enjoying your retirement. How can we get there? What is your shortfall? Or maybe you have enough left for that. So that we used calculation objects. We had a family pension plan. That means you could also incorporate data from your partner to see what your family situation would be. And to help people set their goal for their monthly income that they might need later on, we had something called a doelinkomenadviseur. That means like You set your situation, you enter, well, it's pretty easy, you enter your yearly gross income, and based on studies that was done on a university, we will calculate that what you probably need in the end. And all this stuff we did with JavaScript back in the day. So in 2015 we launched it with an external partner. We used native, so on iOS and Android. That meant Objective-C in Java, and we had native performance. That was really important to us. It must be snappy and very good working. The problem is that we were not so happy with the progress, because if you listen to Dan, things take time, especially if you have to develop it separately in iOS and separately in Android. Above that, we had a situation that there was only an iOS developer later on. The Android developer moved on to another company. And back in the day when there were two developers there, they talked to each other, but not about the app. So you can imagine that some things look different or work different on either one. So were we happy with the progress? No, we were definitely unhappy. So, being cocky as I am, my name is Rowdy, that means I'm loud-mouthed and rude, I said to my manager, we can do this much better ourselves, without knowing really what we could do. I've done some things with Cordova platform, for instance, but that was about it. So I got the chance to make a proof of concept. That also meant figuring out stuff, what we could do, what was out there. We had stuff like React Native, but I didn't know React, so I didn't want to learn React either in that day. We could choose Cordova, but then you have like not a real app, I must say. It's more like a website incorporated in an app. Like the performance is not what we wanted and what we already were accustomed to. Xamarin was also there, but that's C#, and I'm a web developer, so that was no-go for me. So I came around a thing called NativeScript back in the day. It was version 2.3 or something like that. And I started hacking for about 3 weeks. This is an actual picture of me. I changed a little back in the day, but I got 3 weeks of, well, mostly trial and error. But also, fortunately, I met the guy on the right here. I'm not sure it's really visible, but that's Sebastian. He's also from Progress Software. And he was at a Google Dev Fest in Amsterdam. And he had a great talk there about NativeScript. And I think I talked with him about 2 hours after that. Just get information. There was not that much around that. There was a book that was in progress. There was one course, so it was just trial and error and thinking out stuff. And you see Triodos Bank there too. I had some contacts with them, also what they were doing. And in those 3 weeks, I could deliver a proof of concept. Well, animations were important, so I tried to wow them with that. But you can see iOS and Android next to each other with some basic input fields. Styling is not that beautiful yet, but it did the trick. Buttons didn't do anything. Also incorporated already a menu. You see an iOS part, a sliding menu. And this, without any knowledge of the framework, I could get together in 3 weeks. My manager said, well, looks nice, but how would you do it if we would do it for real? And one of the things is that we chose for using NativeScript together with Angular. And why is that? Because Angular is an opinionated framework which made sure that we could do things in the same way. Back in the day, we were working with 2 developers, and it's easier to have something that's already providing you stuff like routing or dependency injection. you work in a similar way and not like, okay, I invented my own JavaScript here and see if you can make any of it. Nowadays, you can also use Vue.js in NativeScript apps. Back in the day, that wasn't possible yet. You had the choice about plain JavaScript or TypeScript or Angular. And for the mentioned reasons, we chose Angular. Also, we could reuse our calculation objects that we created already. So that was good. Only thing is what we did was we rewrote them in TypeScript. We put some things together, like we didn't need peas anymore. We could have put that in another one. But the thing is, we were developing with NativeScript and JavaScript. So we could reuse that and create some new stuff in there too, because we have to do a lot of calculations, like things with taxes, or we needed to have access to a database. We used to do that through an SQLite database on the mobile device, but it was way easier to just use something that's typical for JavaScript, and that's JSON, a JSON structure. We created also a component like NN-verzekeraar for our own calculations that we needed to do, and also for the Sociale Verzekeringsbank. All things around it to create a good experience. We kept on doing it the right way you should do with Angular, so we created services in that application to be able to communicate with those calculation objects. Also, what we also wanted to do is have a multilingual app. I will share a little bit about it later on, but it's also like connecting to a specific language, or load the database, for instance, have access to the database. And what's also very important, people trust us to fill in their personal information. So we need to encrypt and save that sensitive input. We used a JavaScript library for that. And the only way to decrypt your information is to enter a 5-digit PIN code, which we don't store but use as a seed for that encryption. So if you lose it, you lose your data. Sorry for that, but it's easier, it's safer for everybody. What we also wanted to do is make sure that what you type into the app is validated. But also make it easy that we have spinners in the app that have certain ranges. The maximum length of inputs, or just validate input fields. We want to have a number here, or we do want a name, make sure that we have it. And with services, you could make sure that you have it in one place. You don't have to create a screen and do everything on there. And so we also use a lot of sliders for maximum minimum values here. So a validation service, not the logic, but the guidelines or the functional descriptions was like, okay, we have a percentage that should be a number, it is required, it has a minimum and maximum value, and it has steps of 0.05. And with that information, we can make sure that, for instance, a slider or a drop-down is generated like that. We could build a lot of ourselves, but there was also stuff that we couldn't build ourselves or didn't want to. So there come NativeScript plugins. We use quite a few, but these are the most important ones. We use the NativeScript barcode scanner. It says what it does. It can scan and read barcodes. We use it for QR codes. I will show you. We used NativeScript Carousel, so we could make, say, an intro for a process, and people can swipe through on the same page, but like with the little dots below, as you can see on websites. NativeScript Toast is about sending little messages on the bottom of the screen, saying, okay, this is working fine, or we did this and this for you. And we also used the NativeScript UI side drawer. You saw it already on the iOS version, the menu. This is one of the plugins that's provided by NativeScript itself, by Progress itself. They have a great UI library for you. And we also use the NativeScript plugin Firebase. Firebase is an online platform from Google. You can use it, for instance, for real-time database. What we use it for was for analytics. So every time a user goes to a new screen or hits a button or does an action, we send a little ping to Firebase to see how people are using our app. This is a combination of plugins. Here you can see the Carousel. And what we did is you have the ability to upload an export of the pension registry in the Netherlands to our NN website. From all the pensions that are in there, we create a QR code, and those QR codes can be scanned with our app. So you don't have to enter this information manually. Also, you saw that Pecan Pipe at the beginning. We want to have something similar. That would be the central point of our app. But we were able to experiment a little. This is the original one, like in 3D. And then we came up with some good ones, some bad ones, and some even worse ones. But we had these are designs. We didn't build this yet. We thought of this or a similar way of stacking stuff, or even go wild with this is your beautiful island when you retire. This crazy stuff. And actually, this is also one that we tried to build. And you can see it on the left-hand side, also a little bit on the right-hand side. These are two proof of concepts I worked on before I went on a holiday. It worked pretty okay, but the thing is, if you touch a screen, there are multiple actions there. It could be a touch, or a tap, or a long tap. And I got some problems interacting with stuff, because you wanted to move those buttons around, but you also needed to be able to click on the colored pieces, for instance. So I was on a holiday, got a text saying, well, we're not going to do that, thank you, but we're going to something like this. We simplified the stuff also because our test panel couldn't not really understand what we were doing. So sometimes you have to go back and make it easier. If you go from the menu, you see those animated stacks. We animated it with CSS animations, so nothing spectacular, but you can use CSS for designing and the colors, but also for animations. And they reflect the buttons below that, like, did I make any choices for later? Do I invest already for retirement? Do I have pensions? And do I have salary and income right now? As I mentioned, we wanted to have it multilingual. And fortunately, because we use Angular, we could use a package called NGX Translate. And, well, that's an internationalization library which enables you to have multiple translations for different languages. It's really easy to use. And the most important thing is that you don't have any screens that have hard-coded text in it. If you have a marketing department saying, well, could you change that? And it's on 20 screens, good luck with that. If it's in one file, you can change it easily. Also, what I already do if I only have an app with one language, or you can also use this on a website that's built with Angular, I always use it because it's easy to have all your text at one position. So this is an example of a piece of our Dutch part. So we have this graph page, which has a page title that's on top, and then you see the also the header text there, and the button text. And you can switch easily because we have an English version that has the same labels, but with the, of course, with the English translation. We even said to our manager, do you want it German? Because we can do it in 10 minutes. And then show them, but it would take more time to translate everything than to build it actually. But it can still be done. All fun and all. We did launch it just before Christmas 2017. It's like deploying on Friday, saying, well, good luck with it. But it wasn't all roses. Let me play this, because we have sliders in our app. If you tap one of the bars, you can see if you have a shortfall or a surplus. And we help you, we give suggestions how to solve that. For instance, here we say, if you save 468 euros extra a month, then you will say, we will make sure that your shortfall is 0. But you can combine stuff, and you can see that happen here. We switch on the sliders, and the numbers change. That was the idea, and that is a good idea. Unfortunately, those sliders interact with each other. If you change one slider, it has effects on the numbers of the other ones. So this is what we first did. If you don't know code, doesn't matter. It's more like the principle. If we change the value, we called a function that captured that new value and would do a new calculation. What we wanted to do is have that be able to also set the value there and get the value. So you need to use something called NGModel. And that was the point. That was the last two were colliding with each other. So what we had to do in the end was, if you change one, you have to make sure that you stop the other ones from interacting. And also, as you can see here, we have a debounce time. That means wait for 150 milliseconds after someone changed the slider. Otherwise, we literally felt our Android phones getting hot because we are doing constantly calculations over calculations over calculations. So that's why we had to make sure that we did that. As I said, what you do is we remove the event listener, so we removed listening to all the other sliders, so we could set the values for those and enabled listening to them again. It took some time to figure out what was going on, but in the end, it's always something you can fix in a few hours, but before you get there, it's a different thing. Also, this happened to us. This is like when you started our app, it was in the store, but it felt like that. Performance. What we didn't do, and we knew we didn't do because we didn't have the time for it, is if you start the app, we load all the pages and all the logic. Well, it's available then, but you don't need it. So what we did was incorporate lazy loading. That means only load the page when you get there. And if it's loaded then, next time it's still there. Also, what we didn't do was making sure we delivered a small package for the stores. So we used Webpack and Arclify therefore to create it. That meant also that our startup time went from 12 seconds to 3 seconds. Oh, that's quite a lot. But even more, our iOS app was 140 megabytes first, and it went down to 42 megabytes because we dropped everything we didn't use. So it's the beauty of Angular, that it does a lot of stuff for you, but also make sure you get rid of the stuff that you don't need. One last thing also is about updating. NativeScript is a great tool, but it has updates from the CLI, for instance, or their core modules. make sure that you be sensible about that. Also, Xcode on iOS was sometimes annoying because things might not work correctly yet. So automatic updates, we didn't do that anymore. And a thing about plugins, we this is normally like plugins are used in the package.json, where you describe which versions you need. And you see here 2 versions, one with a tilde and one with a caret. That means if it's a tilde and you have the first one, that means you can get every version up till 8.1 in this case. So some minor changes. But the second one is more annoying in that case, because you can have bigger changes that even can break your app. So what we did was we made sure we got rid of the tildes and the carets, because it just broke our stuff overnight. I have to wrap it up because lunch is waiting for us. But we started in 2016 with an in-house team of 5 people, 2 developers. We used NativeScript. We were able to have one code base for Android and iOS. We used web technologies but still had native performance. And we were pretty happy with progress. One last thing is that the beauty is that now a subsidiary of our company, AZL, wants to use that app too. So we're probably going to make a deviation of it with their colors. And they serve, I have to look it up, 53 pension funds with 13,000 employers and 1.5 million participants. So if we do it right, we can help a lot of people figure out their financial future. And yeah, this was my image for lunch. I took all of the pictures of our branding site. Unfortunately, we didn't have one of a jail. I'm not sure. We're positive, probably. So I would like to say thank you and enjoy your lunch. If you have any questions about this or NativeScript, just come and see me later.